This episode is brought to you by Vinyl Me Please, a vinyl record of the month club where every month they feature one album that is essential to every vinyl connoisseur's collection and send it to thousands of members worldwide. Each box includes special edition vinyl you won't find anywhere else. I'm talking stuff like custom lyric books, exclusive artwork, and personal notes from the artists themselves. And with no membership contracts or hidden fees, what's not to like? So upgrade your life. Hit up joinvmp.com/extraordinary and get you some of this dope ass vinyl.
Them that's got shall have, them that's not shall be. For the Bible says, and it still is new. Now Mama may have, and Papa he may have, but God bless the child that's got its own. That's got its own. Them that's got shall do. God bless the child. Them that's not shall do.
And welcome to another installment of the Extraordinary Negroes. It is your boy, Jay Connor.
And this is Alex Hardy.
And before we start, we want to throw some confetti and cake. Well, we're not going to throw the cake, but we're just going to throw the confetti. But we are going to have confetti and cake in honor of James Baldwin and Mr. President Barack Obama's birthday. We know that he's getting plenty of love from Michelle because she's got the shoulders out right now. So
it's going down in the White House.
It's definitely, or the Black
not
House.
The White House, right.
The Black House. What you been up to, black man?
Fighting humidity and mustiness at every turn in New York City. Just got back from DC, went down there for a panel for a human rights campaign for minority LGBTQ mental health awareness. Was chosen to speak on a panel alongside some other activists and some people from the health center there in DC, just about the challenges faced by folks of color in the LGBT community in regards to mental health and wellness and overall well-being. So that was dope. Also, still cooking up this mental health awareness campaign, this Get Some Joy situation that I hope to be launching here shortly.
Y'all ain't ready for it.
It's going the fuck down, and there should be some pretty big news here to announce that involves both the Extraordinary Negroes and this mental health campaign. So looking forward to that. And other than that, just trying to stay moisturized, keep my elbows and ankles moisturized. How about you?
Yes, unlike Jimmy Walker's scalp. You'd have to be following our Facebook page to get that joke. First and foremost, it's been a busy week for your boy. I will be appearing on an upcoming episode of Podcast Junkies. Shout out to my guy, Harry Duncan. I promise to be as black and funny as humanly possible during my foray over there. Should be a good time. Also, I will be appearing at the upcoming podcast movement. I believe it starts on the 16th. I'd have to look on the schedule, but I'll be up there. So if you see me up there, give me a shout out and give me a dap, something, a high five. Also, I've got a couple meetings lined up this upcoming week. I will be meeting with Larry Wilmore's camp. So I'll be sliding over to ABC Studios to go talk the talk. And also, most importantly, I have a mixer that specifically is targeting black people and POCs in general that are within the creative entertainment diaspora. So whether you're a writer, producer, filmmaker, makeup artist, whatever, as long as you out here, creating art, I definitely want to see you come through. It's going to be on August 30th at the WeWork Fine Arts Building, which is in downtown LA, right around the corner from Fig and 7th, which we all know where that is. But yeah, it's going to be dope. It's going to be myself and my homeboys Dreamland & Co. They going in on this with me, as well as Mr. Billy Sorrells and Mr. Delay, who are two comedians who you should be well familiar with, whether you've seen them on BET, whether you've seen Billy on MTV's Wildin' Out, or both of them on your Instagram, just wilding out, acting a damn fool on there. But yeah, it's going to be a good ass, black ass time, and we're definitely trying to connect and trying to, galvanize the entertainment and the black creative community. So if you are interested, please come through August 30th, again at the WeWork Fine Arts downtown building. So I'll have more details that'll be coming out shortly soon, but that's the gist of it. Also, Every week we're hitting y'all in the head with an extraordinary recap of every episode of Insecure. So make sure you're checking out our recaps of those every week. We've been joined by Miss Tanja Renee Stidham, Miss Monique Judge, Miss motherfucking Judge. And the next episode we'll be joined by Yvette Brown of the editor-in-chief of Bitch Media. So, you know, we pulling in the big dogs, we pulling in the big guns to come and fuck with us. And then, yeah, make sure y'all checking those out. And I guess we can get to our first hot take of the week.
Indeed.
Earlier this week, consumer goods behemoth Procter and Gamble released an ad that highlights the conversations that Black parents have with their children in order to prepare them for a world that all too often fears and maligns us.
It's an ugly, nasty word, and you are going to hear it. Nothing I can do about that. But you are not going to let that word hurt you.
You got your ID? Yeah. Okay, so stop it.
Good. Now, when you get pulled over...
I'm a good driver. Okay?
Baby,
Don't worry.
this is not about you getting a ticket. This is about you not coming home.
I'm gonna be okay. Right?
And of course, many a salty white tear was shed in response, decrying the ad as quote-unquote reverse racism and calling for boycotts of any and all Procter and Gamble products, which begs the question, will white fragility ever come with an expiration date?
No, it will not. It will live forever and ever and ever.
Forever, ever, forever, ever.
And ever and ever until the end of time. Now, again, none of this is surprising. You know, the ad basically, for those who haven't seen it, just, you know, entails parents, Black parents having those, you know, the talk with their parents, how to survive out here, how not to get killed, how to make it home, all this important stuff. It is what it is. I mean, whether just because you as Mr. White Man or Mrs. White Lady haven't had these experiences or had to talk to your kids about how to make it home without being murdered or shot in the face does not mean that these things are not happening and taking place in the world. There's a whole other world of millions and millions of people whose lives are affected in ways that you probably can't even fathom, who have to have these very real, unfortunate, and also scary conversations with their kids, you know, about just how to make it out here. And, you know, it's just a luxury, you know, Mrs. White Lady and Mr. White Man. You should consider yourselves lucky that you don't have to brace your kids, you know, for these things. You know, you don't have to talk to your kids about, you know, not wearing hoodies or not having their hands in their pockets or, you know, keeping your hands visible when you're pulled over or not, you know, making sudden movements when you're in the presence of so and so and so. I mean, these are just very real and unfortunate, fucked up things. It's a reality that we're in. And, yeah, it, you know, just because you don't have to talk to Molly about it doesn't mean it's not real. And also preparing your kid, preparing your Black child, you know, for life in this hateful ass world is not an anti-white or a racist, or it has nothing to do with, you know, your life or your existence or the lives of your children. So, I mean, of course, just like with anything, the calls for and the cries for boycotting and shit, it's all fuckery and a waste of time.
After watching the ad, you said you saw the ad, right?
Yes.
Okay, after watching the ad, I was legit surprised by how authentic it was. Obviously, it was a sanitized version of those conversations that we have, but it was pretty damn authentic. It was pretty damn straight on as far as like what the topics that they were addressing. You know what I'm saying? As far as like her saying, I think she told her daughter like she's pretty beautiful for a Black girl.
Not just for a Black girl, yeah.
Oh, not just for a Black girl. And then, you know, the mother talking to her daughter about like, you know, getting pulled over by the, like, these are conversations that like we legitimately have. Because I was watching the commercial, I was like, damn, this shit is like actually super legit. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like I was like, these are conversations we for real have. And these are conversations that I dread having with my own child, in part because you just, you know, so often we hear like you shouldn't be having, you shouldn't be doing these things to kids. You're contaminating them and making them think about things that they shouldn't have to. And it's like, if you're old enough to be discriminated against, you're old enough to protect yourself from it. Yeah. Message. It's really that simple. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no age requirement to being allowed to be empowered and allowed to protect yourself from racism. Like, that's just fucking stupid. Like, is it like you hit puberty and all of a sudden, well, my nuts drop, so now I can defend myself and I can speak up against this shit? It's like, no, life don't work that way.
Nope.
So these are conversations that I dread having with my own child. But I mean, it was very authentic and it was very necessary. And if anything, I was grateful that a company of this stature, because Procter and Gamble is one of the biggest fucking companies we got. You know what I'm saying? Like, you really can't get much bigger than that outside of I don't know, Apple and Disney. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was appreciative of it. So I definitely give them props on that. Shout out to them for having black people behind the scenes somewhere that were like, yo, this is how you do it. Fuck what Pepsi's talking about. This is how you go about this the right way.
Right. This shows the difference when you talk to actual black people.
Yeah. And if anything, I think that there's been such a tremendous backlash because it's a perfect demonstration of what white privilege looks like. People are reacting like this because these are conversations that they don't have to have. You know what I'm saying? And this is everyday life for us. This is real shit. This is conversations we often have to have with ourselves before we leave the house as adults. And you know what I'm saying?
It sucks. Like, just imagine, like, you having to talk to a, elementary school age kid, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, about the dangers of potentially being mistaken for a full grown ass man or woman, and being perceived as a threat to an adult, you who's, pre-puberty being, mistaken for a 30-year-old black man, with a gun. Just like it's asinine. These are things that the other side, the mainstream folks, just can't even imagine. So of course I could understand. Well, actually, I can't understand the backlash. It's a part of the world that you just have no insight into, and it doesn't really affect you. So
Trump's America.
Yep.
Also, Patreon. Could you tell the fine people at home why Patreon is so important to us as an independent entity?
Yes. Being independent and free black people out here in the 2017 is not necessarily easy to produce or free to produce and put out quality media, whether it be podcasts or articles or any video content. So Patreon is a way for our lovely listeners and readers and well-wishers to assist us on our journey here to create black excellence and release them to the world. So whether it be the podcast or creating a platform for other black creators, we don't mind putting in the work, but definitely could use some help with some of the costs of keeping this machine in motion. So heading over to patreon.com/theextraordinary.com. The Extraordinary Negroes is a way for you to pledge, whether it be $1 a month or $5 or $10 or $50 or $1,000 a month, just to help keep the party going and to help us continue being the wonderful, extraordinary Negroes that you have grown to know and love.
Word. Niggas got bills, yo. It's really that simple. Niggas got bills. And if Patreon isn't your ministry, by all means, we accept PayPal donations as well. And you can hit us at PayPal.me/The Extra Negroes. So yeah, just we like Alex said, this comes with commitments and costs. The commitments aren't an issue, it's the costs that we need help with. So anything you can donate, we would graciously appreciate and accept. And I want to take a moment to give a shout out to Miss Andrea Sheena. I really hope I didn't butcher her last name, for being our newest pledge. So we definitely appreciate that. Also make sure you guys are checking out the after party episodes. We haven't had any for a minute because we've been doing the Insecure recaps.
So who initiated the sex?
Him, basically.
Have you all spoken since?
Yeah. No.
But anytime something of black and importance comes about, we like to opine on it. So keep an eye out for those. Also, make sure you're checking out the articles we have on our website. Miss Sin has been killing it lately. Sharonda's been killing it. You know what I mean? Everybody's been the Dark One killing it. You know what I mean? Rippa killing it. So shout out to everybody coming through. I think Zay is going to be doing something again for us.
Come on down, Zay. Come back
through.
To the fold.
Come through. So yeah, we appreciate everybody's contributions, and more importantly, we appreciate everybody showing them love for the work that they're putting out there.
That's also been, just want to say that just to see the response to the articles and just seeing how far, and wide these things are getting shared and the commenting, and just like, we really appreciate the love, not just for our stuff, but, for the contributors and all the different perspectives that we are, have been able to showcase on the extraordinarynegroes.com. So thank you for that love, and please keep that up.
Absolutely. We're big proponents of using our platform to provide opportunities for people of color, specifically black people, but POC, we fuck with you too. So if you got something you want us to post, something that's, heavy on your heart, please shoot us an email at theextraordinarynegroes@gmail.com and we'll get it up there. You know what I'm saying? Last episode, what are your thoughts? Actually, I'm sorry. I don't care about your thoughts. What'd you hear about it?
People were, it's always good when you can hear like people that you love and you respect, these figures and larger than life personalities just be just their absolute, just real regular ass selves. By what I've heard, we have captured that on the most recent episode with Evita and Darnell, two behemoths of the travel world, and out here creating Black media and opportunities for other Black creators. And yeah, from what I heard, it was just good. People were happy to hear just these two being raw as fuck and, cussing and telling stories and just telling about their journeys and what it's like on the, on the other side of the travel movement. And, one person in particular said, good to hear Evita curse and talk like a normal person.
Your ass will be disrupted.
Oh yes, that too. She was dropping those gems. Yeah, just good to hear these two people be like regular people. And Darnell's always out here talking shit, so people were just all about any opportunity to hear him do what Darnell does. So shout out to both of them.
I think the best feedback that I heard about this episode was that I'm trying to quote it verbatim, but I'm gonna fail miserably because I have a low retention rate. But basically the premise of what was said was that I love the Extraordinary Negroes podcast because you guys have a way of making people feel comfortable in their skin in a way that a lot of podcasts don't, because there's other podcasts where they might interview somebody and it feels kind of stale. You know what I'm saying? But we're able to get the authenticity from our guests, but also we create a comforting environment in which they're able to just, relax and be themselves as well. So just the fact that we're able to establish that duality where it doesn't get too crazy, but it doesn't get too serious. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I thought that was really dope because, I think that a lot of people see, maybe not necessarily Darnell, because, I think he's probably like that 24/7. But with Evita, they might see her be more serious within the public space. But the fact that they were able to see kind of her being relaxed and,
exactly.
the side that we know, you know what I mean? It's the side that me and Alex know, because it's always fun whenever you get to invite, your friends onto the show. You know what I'm saying? People that you actually know outside of the show. It's always cool to have those opportunities to do that. So I'm glad that we were able to show part of that side to you guys, and hopefully we can continue to do that with future guests.
Yeah. One word that someone used, just one of that just came to mind, was raw. Was the word that they mentioned for that last interview, just to hear, Evita and Darnell just share their experiences, TED Talks and travel and, building business and shit like that, just to hear the professional side, what goes into it on the work side, but just to hear just the raw and the realness about who they are as people and what makes them tick individually. That was also eye-opening to a lot of people too.
Yeah. So shout out to them for coming through. And who we got on this episode?
On this episode, we are going to be joined by criminal justice advocate Marlon Peterson. He's the host of the Incarcerated podcast, and he's going to be talking about criminal justice reform, Kalief Browder, and his journey from incarceration to advocate and life changer. So we're going to wrap with him, and it should be a pretty dope talk.
Should definitely be some dope shit. But before we get to that, let's get to some motherfucking shrimp and grits.
It's the questions. It's the questions, boy. It's the questions. It's the questions. Come on, the questions. It's the questions, boy. It's the questions. It's the questions. Yeah, the questions.
All right. Anonymous asks, who are some of you guys' role models?
There's a couple. Well, one. Let's say. Janet's choreographer, Gilda Delow, of course. Wonderful choreographer and dancer and performer and just a great all-around person.
No love for Tina?
Of course. Tina Lennon, that just goes beyond. That's goes without saying. But Gil, I just really appreciate his work and hope to be able to tell his story and work with him in some kind of way soon. But definitely Gil. I definitely want to say Kiese Layman. Kiese is...
Shout out to Kiese.
Yeah. Just the way he loves Black folks, and just to see the shit that he's doing. He got these books coming out, and the way that his, changing lives at Devona, writing workshops, and, his students down in Mississippi. I love just the way he's able to reach out and affect people in a very authentic and real ass way. So shout out to Kiese. So there's a couple others, but yeah, those are a few.
You know what though? With Kiese, I was amazed at what he said about the transphobic community. I think it was yesterday or the day before. Yeah. In regards to him acknowledging his own transphobia, because I saw somebody say, it kind of triggered a conversation that I had with a friend of mine. And because I saw somebody say the other day that, after this whole Little Duval Charlemagne thing blew up, and somebody said if you wouldn't date a transphobic, if you wouldn't date a trans person, you're transphobic. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, no, that's not the way this shit works. And I'm immediately thinking like, yo, like this motherfucker is tripping. Like just because that's not my preference doesn't mean that I'm anti. You know what I'm saying? Right. But then in hearing how Kiese explained it without being hyperbolic, as far as saying like, you know, just because you're transphobic doesn't necessarily, it's a matter of comfort is basically what he was saying. He was saying that like, just because you advocate for people and you want the best for people, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're willing to do everything humanly possible to eliminate your own comfort in order to make them feel as equals. You know what I mean? And when he broke it down like that, I was like, shit, like when you say it like that, maybe I am transphobic.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Are. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe on some level,
that.
We all are. It's just, he's probably, you know, to that point, I was about to say one of my role models is James Baldwin. So I was about to say to that point, he's probably somebody that, I mean, nobody's James Baldwin, you know what I'm saying? But he's one of those people that like him and Hari are people that will articulate things. Hari Zayed, for people that don't know what I'm talking about. Him and Hari are people who will articulate things a certain way and just completely have me rethink how I perceive them. You know what I mean? Because I pride myself on being somebody who is pretty fucking intelligent. But at the same time, whenever you have other people's perceptives and they're more intelligent and more articulate than you are, you know what I mean? It kind of makes you take a step back and just be like, oh, okay, well, maybe I didn't look at it that way. You know what I mean? And case in point with the whole transphobia thing, I was like, there's no way in hell I'm transphobic. Like, fuck out of here. It's a preference. I would just prefer a cis woman. You know what I'm saying? But the way he broke down the fact that like, what am I willing to do with my comfort level to make them feel comfortable? The way he articulated that, it was just like, oh shit, like maybe I am.
Yeah,
so.
He's very self-aware. I just love that about him, how he's able to just, you know, showcase his own ignorance and, you know, show his own blind spots, you know, for the greater good and to like, you know, show his growth and evolution. So shout out to, we need more of that for sure.
I think that's one of the reasons why he resonates with people. And I'm actually surprised he's not a bigger name than he should be. I mean, he's already a big name, but he should be like up there with like the Ta-Nehisi Coates, the Michael Eric Dysons. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the level that he should be on. But to the point, I think that's why he resonates with people so well, because he uses his own ignorance as a point of discussion, as opposed to like saying like, you're doing this and it's fucked up because of this. He's saying, I'm doing this and it's fucked up because of this, and I need to do better. And in turn, I hope that by me doing better and telling you about it, you'll choose to do better. You know what I mean? The fact that he has that level of humility, like that's very, very, very rare.
And maturity too. Yeah, that takes much maturity.
Yeah. And he a cool ass nigga. You know what I'm saying? Like he cool as fuck. So
yeah. And he writes his ass off too. That helps.
Yeah. All right. What else we got?
Suzette asks, oh shit, what were you guys like in high school?
Yo, high school, I was by no means the cool ass nigga I am today. I definitely wasn't like a nerd. I was never like a dork or a nerd or anything like that. I was the guy that was like cool with everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like I was like the class clown. I was the guy that would have everybody in school just fucking cracking up all the damn time. And I was kind of like the liaison between all the different groups, because obviously school is so cliquish, you have like your home clique. So obviously I was a part of like the black people clique. But at the same time, like I could navigate through like the jocks, the nerds, the dorks, and be like the peace treaty person between all these different groups. So I was just, you know, a nigga that was just cracking jokes all the time. I wasn't much of a ladies' man. Hooped a little bit. But yeah, I was just, you know, just a regular high schooler that was just funny as shit. I used to spend, that was back when I was still drawing. So I used to spend an absurd amount of time in my room, locked up in there drawing.
Scribbling, yeah.
And yeah, I was just a cool ass nigga, man, just playing basketball and just cracking jokes all the damn time. What about you?
This may be hard for people to believe, but I used to be an asshole. A bigger asshole, rather.
No.
Yeah, I was. Oh man, I wasn't rude, but like my mouth. Like I wasn't bad. I got good grades, but like my mouth was like this thing. I used to just got me in a lot of trouble. You know, I wrote for the newspaper. I was an editor off and on for our high school newspaper. Shout out to the Bearfax. And yeah, I was the guy who wrote unpopular opinions, like to the point where like people, until I put my picture beside my editorials, some people thought I was like this crotchety white dude, like, who was just bashing all the shit that everybody thought was popular. Like, Ice Cube is trash, Will Smith is stupid, this rapper is, like, your favorite rapper is an idiot, all that kind of stuff. Other than that, I got good grades. I was good at talking back and giving and not letting people and teachers get the last word. I never got in a fight or anything like that, but my insults were like A1. So even if, you know, I avoided conflict, I was just going to cut you down in some kind of way, maybe without you even knowing that you were being cut down, if at all possible. Was definitely not super athletic. I ran track for like 2 weeks, and then I focused on being a homo. And that was
shout out to being a homo.
Yeah, man. That's where it was. I wasn't out here like flirting or anything in school. Like, all of my shit was like offline and, you know, dealing with folks I shouldn't have been dealing with. But that's another conversation for later.
Yeah, it's funny because when people talk about high school, they always talk about like, oh, I was a ladies' man. And it's like, I was anything but a ladies' man. I didn't even realize women liked me until I became an adult. I mean, it's not like I ever had like any kind of, like, women were like, had like an aversion to me or anything like that. I just didn't really think about like women like that. I just was just living my life. And it wasn't until I grew up and I was like, oh shit, right. Women like a nigga. So, yeah, it was high school was dope, man. High school was real dope. What groups were you in?
Groups. Oh shit. Yeah, I was a newspaper staff. You mean like within high school? Yeah, newspaper staff. I did like Spanish club. I wasn't super active. The newspaper was probably my biggest thing. Being on the newspaper staff, doing that after school, that was our like preferred after school activity of choice. We would like leave school and come back after school at like 5 and 6 and order pizza and like finish laying out the school newspaper before we went to print. We were total cornballs. Other than that, I was in the fast ass teenager club, and that's pretty much it.
Hoes Unanimous, or
pretty much.
Hoes Unanimous. I was in debate. I was in, because, you know, a nigga love to argue. I was in debate. I was in some writers thing, because I used to write my ass off in high school too. I know, well, I played basketball obviously for the school. I think that's about it. I was all right. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and act like I was out there just like tearing niggas up. I mean, I was okay at best. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was somebody who could like hold his own, and you wouldn't be out there like making me look crazy, but I'm not out there looking like Jordan and shit. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. You weren't
like,
getting last.
Yeah, if I was like in the NBA, I would have had like a solid career. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'd have been like a 6-man or something like that. But I wasn't out there like dunking on niggas and just out there just killing them. But I was all right. Next question. What's changed the most about your life in the past year?
You know, I will say I'm feeling alive for the first time in a really long time, I must say. The last couple of years has been a horror movie overall, but like for the first time in a long time, I'm feeling hopeful and excited about, and I'm actually like thinking about the next year and planning and like looking forward to what's coming, you know, as opposed to like, ooh, a motherfucker just got to get through today, or let me just get through the week without jumping in front of a train. Like, I'm actually in a place where I feel like, okay, I'm actually looking forward to the end of the year and next year, and feeling like ready for all of these things and things to come. I think that there's a great shift that happens like when you have ideas and you have things you want to do, and that's one thing, but when you actually feel capable and ready for them, that's a whole different shift as far as like being able to make your dreams happen and go after the things you want to accomplish. So that shift has been pretty significant. I have to be more deliberate about like staying on top of my mental health situation now. The situation is not ideal, the living situation, still trying to pull things together. But I think the hope is the new thing. Like, I'm all about this excitement and this curiosity about what's to come. So I think that's a pretty big change, and I'm just gonna keep walking and embracing that shit, just running forward.
That's good shit. It's funny though, because my life within the last year has been like the complete opposite. Man, this last year has been like brutal. This last year has kicked my ass. Expectations have magnified, multiplied. Workload has magnified, multiplied. Stress level has magnified, multiplied. My health has deteriorated. My mental health has deteriorated. My physical health has deteriorated. Just been I've been like crazy antisocial for the last year. Yeah, it's just, and I think a lot of it just stems from just being ambitious. A lot of it stems from just like really pouring myself into like my creative pursuits to my own detriment, I would say. And the last year has been like really, really, really bad comparatively. I mean, it could be a lot worse as far as like what it could be, but I mean, just in comparison to the person that I was prior to the last year. I'm definitely grateful for the strides that I've made creatively. I'm definitely grateful for the platform that the Extraordinary Negroes has provided. I'm definitely grateful for the doors that it's opened. But at the same time, it's come at a tremendous cost. And I need to do a better job of balancing the two, because as is this endeavor, as well as the other creative stuff that I have in the pipeline, it's just literally killing me. So I have to do a better job of establishing more of a balance. And this will honestly, this will probably be my last episode for a minute, because I probably need to take a step back and just like sleep, eat, experience sunlight, recharge. Yeah, I need to get my shit together. But
that's real.
Thank you, Jenny, for bringing Jenny, for bringing our mental health and self-care regimens into focus. Shout out to Jenny. But thank you, Jenny. What else we got?
We got to pay some bills.
Yeah.
So, if you are in the market for an obsessively engineered mattress at a shockingly fair price with just the right amount of sink and bounce, Casper has got you. They pride themselves on not only being the most awarded mattress of the decade, but they combine latex and memory foam to provide you with all the good sleep you deserve. And with their free shipping and 100-day risk-free trial and return policy, why not rock with them? Give them a chance. So hit up CasperTrial.com/extraordinary and get $50 off of your next mattress today.
Blow. That was a terrible sound effect, but it was mine. Shall we get to the interview?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
Marlon Peterson is an international social and criminal justice advocate, writer, organizational trainer, and educator who spent 10 years in New York State prisons. He is host of the podcast Incarcerated, a Soros Justice Fellow, Aspen Ideas Festival Scholar, a 2015 Ebony Magazine Power 100 honoree, and a TED resident. Ladies, gentlemen, and folks, Marlon Peterson, welcome to the show.
Yo, that's a lot of stuff there. that's a lot of stuff.
Yo, that's resume.
I don't know if it's a resume or whatever, but I mean, you sound crazy if you repeat that back to me.
All right, so cool. How's it going? How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm thankful, man, for real. You know, I'm trying to like make use of 24 hours a day a little bit better, but you know, life is all right.
Good. So one thing we often ask, both online and on our show, we ask our guests, how would you rate your self-care this week on a scale of 1 to 10?
God damn.
Right to it.
I'm gonna say, I'm most hypocritical here. I always tell people to be like, you know, self-care, and I don't be doing this. But I'm gonna say this week I'm at like I'm at a 7. I think I'm actually doing a little bit better this week, and that's mess up. The 7 is better.
7's good. What's going well? What are you doing well?
Well, I mean, outside. So I just came back from out of town for a conference, but I started playing. I don't know if people know, but I'm sure now my family have a history of playing steel pans. So the metal things that people American folks be like, what's the metal pans that y'all be playing?
Yeah.
So I just started playing again, literally this week with a steel pan with a band here in Brooklyn. So you're gonna see me Labor Day weekend beating those big pans
out on the Parkway.
I mean, we'll see if it's still a parade.
Oh yeah, they trying to shut that down too.
Yeah, man. But that's actually, all jokes aside, though. That for me, I mean, I started playing pan when I was a kid. My father played, my older sister, brother played. We all kind of like family, and it's like one of the places where I can like, in a way, disappear in it. And so that's like, for me, that's like therapy for me.
That's real. Now, for people that are unfamiliar with the Decarcerated podcast, could you kind of share what the premise of that show is?
Yeah, I wanted to, it highlights the journeys of success of people who spend time in jail and prison. And, success is relative. So, I mean, you could have came home, you just, got into school, got a little job and you're doing all right. And, that whole spectrum of success is, self-defined. So I want to create a platform that amplifies the voices of like the many millions of people who come home from jail and are doing wonderful things with their own lives and their communities, so that it rips apart that narrative that is like, oh, it's just her doing it or just him doing it. Because that's crazy. There's so many other people in our communities that, went through that experience and are like contributing well to their families and to their neighborhoods.
Yeah. Now, speaking of that experience, you've been very transparent about your own journey from being an inmate to an advocate for criminal justice reform. But for those unfamiliar, would you mind sharing how it is that you entered the New York State correctional system yourself?
some police came and got me and put me in. Nah.
Nigga, I got hit up.
That's the way it happened. Well, the first thing I want to say is that, like, as an advocate, we always talk about language. And so, instead of using terms like inmate and all that, we rather use terms like incarcerated or formerly incarcerated, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But, 19 years old, me and a couple of friends from the neighborhood decided to try to rob a store in Manhattan real stupidly. And it was a horrific crime. I was a lookout in the crime. Nevertheless, I was still a part of it. And 2 people were killed as a result of the robbery. 2 other people were shot. And, it was a devastating experience for, those families, the people that were in the neighborhood where it happened.
Yeah.
It's a horrific event that, like, lives with me and us, meaning those of us who were a part of it.
Yeah.
So that's how I entered it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. You recently on your site, you wrote a letter to 02A3172, and you mentioned the experience of shedding your name and watching men become prisoners. Now, can you talk a little bit about what happens when people become prisoners? What's that process like?
I mean, it's a breaking into slaves. Like, it's a playbook from how you break in slaves. I sincerely believe that. Well, I mean, one of the first things, when you go through, when you're sentenced and you go upstate to state prison, they go through what's called a reception facility. And in that reception facility, all the people that are brought up there that particular day are like huddled into a small room and, yelled at by all these officers from New York State Department of Corrections. And they're cussing at you, yelling at you, shut the fuck up, inmate, this side, you here now, this ain't where we was at before, blah, blah, blah. They strip you down. The next thing they do after that is, they give you the warnings that, like, if you don't fall in line, medical attention will be given to you. You can figure out what that means. But the next thing that they do is, like, you have to shave your hair, bald, any sort of facial hair you have has to be bald. And, they go through a de-licer sort of thing. Wow. And then you get your name, right? I mean, you get your number. Look how I just did that Freudian slip. But you get your number, your New York State Department of Corrections number, which I still remember, 02A3172. And that's the name you're referred to while you're inside. And then, I mean, that's just like reception. That's just day one of being sentenced. That's not every other day. And one way I want to kind of like bookend this is, like, I remember an experience where I was maybe 4 or 5 years into the bid, and I was just transferred to a different facility. And in order to, like, be able to call your friends or family, you got to have your phone numbers put on a call list. And that has to be approved by a counselor within the prison. So I ended up going, getting an opportunity to go to this counselor's office. I had never met him before because it was a new prison. His name was Mr. Rocher. I'll never forget this dude's name. Short, middle-aged, white dude with glasses. And he was like, I said, excuse me, Mr. Rocher, I sent you a slip regarding and he cut me off. He said, you're not Mr. Peterson, you're inmate Peterson. Like, this motherfucker, and I mean, I'm happy I didn't.
Mama didn't name me that.
Word up, you know what I mean? Like, that's just a reassertion, a reaffirmation, I mean, like, of how they want you to think about yourself. And this was a counselor. This wasn't a CO. This wasn't the police inside that was saying. This was the counselor saying this to me, reminding me that, you're inmate. Don't ever think you're on my peer level. And, it takes a lot of work, a lot of, like, real serious introspection to, like, not believe everything they tell you about yourself.
I imagine so. So I guess to that same end, how difficult was it for you to retain your humanity during that time, like going through all of that and being demeaned every day?
Yeah, I always say prison was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in life. And I don't say that from a place of physical harm. Like, I never had any beef in prison, never had a fight, none of that. I did a whole decade there. And it wasn't because I was affiliated with some gang or anything like that. I was just like, I just had a reputation of being somebody who's straight up and forward and consistent. And the hardest part of it was, like, mentally keeping yourself together. I mean, I wrote a lot. I always often talk about, like, I wrote a lot to myself. I wrote journals. I have journals from day one until the day I got out. I started writing to, like, op-eds about different issues, not only prison issues, but issues outside in the community. And I, started, like, getting things published in outside places. Like, writing was one of the places of refuge that was for me. And then also, like, towards the latter half of my bid, because, I mean, the first part of my bid, I was just kind of, like, to myself. I wasn't, like really kicking a lot of people. I needed to figure out, like, how I was going to do this time. And except for basketball is when I was, like, my outlet, my first part of my bid. And it wasn't until, like, the second half of the bid where, like, I started, like, becoming more, like, active in the facility in terms of, like, helping out other guys who was going through stuff. And that gave me like, that helped me out a lot, man. Helping other people helped me. You know what I mean? I didn't know I didn't go into helping people because I'm gonna help myself. It was a need, and I had, I figured I can like fill that need. But like, as I have reflected on it, like that was like air for me. Word. That was kind of like the air I needed to see that I was like worth something.
Yeah, that's a struggle. I mean, 10 years, that's just, oh man, I can't even imagine. But while serving your sentence,
I can.
While serving your sentence, you earned your associates in criminal justice with honors.
Yeah.
Now, what was it like studying and learning the in and outs of the criminal justice system while you were still ensnared in its web?
Oh, that was the best way. I would advise anybody that's doing a criminal justice degree to do a bid and study it while they're inside. But I mean, so the degree that I got was through correspondence, so it wasn't like in the facility because there was no prison, there was no college education within the prison, so I had to like pay for that. And it was literally from a law enforcement perspective. I had no choice in determining like what it looked like. And it was good because I can literally see like some of the bases for like all the different rules and regulations and how officers conducting themselves and how even like thinking about my own experience with the court system, like seeing all that. And I can like look at it like right next to me. I see an officer walking by, or I can look at my trial minutes, so I can reflect back on the experience I had while I was going to court or with the police and like see, oh, this is where they get this from, or this is what this is. And then also be able to like critique it right here and there. So I was like literally, it was like it was almost like you call that shit that professors do when they take 7 years off. You're teaching, you take 7 years off to do some sort of study.
Like a sabbatical?
Yeah, word. It's like it's like a sabbatical in a way. Even though it was a confined sabbatical, but it was definitely helped me gain greater insight into what I was going through and what the other folks around me was going through.
Did that affect your dealings like with, correction officers, as far as, like you said, critiquing or, I know, speaking up is one thing, but, questioning things, or did it just change, your dealings on a day-to-day basis?
Oh yeah, they didn't like me. As I said, I never had no beef with any other people, any other incarcerated men, but my beef was always with officers.
Yeah.
I remember one experience. I can tell you this experience. I don't know how much time I got on this joint.
Okay.
Oh, you got all the time in the world.
When we say time, all the time in the world, thinking about prison, that's kind of like, but I remember an officer, this is around the same time with the previous experience with the counselor. And I had recently transferred from a maximum security prison, and I was like moved now to a medium security prison. So, and this is a dormitory, like dorm setting. It wasn't cell settings anymore. It was my first time being like in a dorm setting. I had always been in a cell. So that was a new experience for me. But then this one particular day, I was out in the yard, I think I was, and I came back to the housing unit, and somebody else inside said, yo, the officer was inside your cubicle, searching your cubicle. Now, it was nothing abnormal for officers to search your joint, but they're supposed to leave what's called like a search slip just back behind to let you know that they searched your cube and to let you know if they took anything out of it, like contraband or anything like that. So I came back to my cubicle and I didn't see no search slip. And when you don't have a search slip and you know that they searched your cube, like there's a lot of things that pop up in our mind because we know that it happens. One of the things that officers take things and you can't prove it, or they put things there. And you can't prove that they weren't in your queue because there's no slip. So I went up to the officer and I was like, excuse me, officer, blah, 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 whatever his name was. And I was like, I was told that you were in my cubicle, but I don't see a slip. And he was like, so what? I was like, well, I'm just saying that, if it's procedure that if you search someone's cube that you're supposed to leave a slip in there. He's like, so you trying to tell me how to do my job? I was like, I'm not trying to tell you anything. I just know what I'm supposed to have. And I'm asking, can you give me what I'm supposed to have? He said, inmate, get out of my face. It's count time, blah, blah, blah. Or I'm going to write you up. So it was count time, meaning that we all have to stand in front of our cubicles while they count us to make sure we're all there. So as he's walking by, he's getting closer to me, and it's a dorm of about maybe 50 men in there. And as he's getting closer, he's talking louder. He's talking about me. There's some inmates here who think they know how to do a correction officer's job. And it's my job to let them know that they're inmates and they got no... And he's going on saying it's louder and louder. And then he walks and he stops right in front of my face. I mean, we were close enough like we were about to like kiss or something. That's how close he was in my face. And it was at that moment that And this is the only time in prison that I felt like I will probably lose my life here. Because I was like, if he puts his hands on me, I'm going to beat the hell. We going to fight. And if you fight officer, that means like you fight every officer in that jail eventually. So, and he, I can't remember exactly what he said to me as he stood in front of my face, but I know I said to him once again, I looked him straight in the eyes and I was like, I asked you for a permit for a slip because you searched my cubicle. That is all I'm asking for. And that's all I said. And then he looked at me in my face and he just kind of got silent and turned around and kept walking. Now, to be clear to you, right? I'm thankful that man didn't do anything else because I might not be here talking to y'all right now on this show. But that was the only time, I'm telling you, that's the only time I was like, I'm about to go toe-to-toe with this officer. Like, I had looked back in my cube and I had like a typewriter and all my journals. And I remember looking back at it while he's like about to come in front of me. And I was like, damn, I hope they don't take all my stuff. Like, in my mind, I was like preparing, like, I hope they don't throw away me and the officers. I hope after they, beat me up and take me to wherever they take me, I hope they don't throw away all my stuff. That's what I had set in my mind that it was about to go down. But that's a long story, but, and that was one of the more extreme examples, but it happened oftentimes when not only advocating on behalf of myself, but advocating on behalf of other people in the prison, that I would come toe to toe with them because they felt like I wasn't in my place. And I mean, frankly, jail ain't my place. So like, I can never like accept that.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I never told that story, I don't think.
Yeah, just that pressure to like, what the right thing is to do. And all you want is them to respect you on some human being shit, on some basic humanity.
Yeah, word up. I mean, the thing about it is, man, I'm thankful I was able to like get out of there when I was supposed to get out of there, you know what I mean? And I attached that largely to like, I had people I could write. Like, well, I can write too. They didn't write all that much, but I knew that they were reading my letters and that, I had a friend, shout out to Dwayne, who had a 3-way hookup. And because my family phone was always cut off because it was too expensive to pay for the collect call. They couldn't afford to collect calls. But my homeboy, Dwayne, his mother used to work for the phone company. So they used to get like these deals. So I could he would always hook me up with a 3-way. And that mattered to me. That was one of the ways I got out of prison. And because I knew I had a lifeline outside of there, like it helped sustain me when I felt like I was going crazy. Like knowing that like there's people out there that's dependent on me. You know what I mean? Yeah. And not everybody got that, bro. Like, word. Not everybody got, like, I had friends, like, didn't have anybody to write. You know what I mean? And I don't know if anybody can think about that, but, like, when you have to completely depend on the prison environment and the prison economy for your own sustenance and your own livelihood, like, that comes, everything, a lot comes behind that. And a lot of problems comes behind that. And so I was able to avoid a lot of things that most people have to deal with because I didn't have to rely on the prison economy. And you can like fill in the blank of what the prison economy is. Like I didn't have to deal with that. I didn't have a lot of money. I might have had like, maybe $30 in my account every month or so. But like that was enough for me not to have to depend on like hustling inside the jail.
Another thing that I saw, you also led the Transitional Services Center, and I saw that you created programming for, men nearing release from incarceration. And also in your TED Talk recently, you recommended, as far as preparing people for release, a robust literary program as well as a degree equivalency programs. Can you talk a little bit about the resources and the work that goes and should go into preparing individuals for release from incarceration?
I mean, it's a well-known fact that I think, well, not fact, but folks who are in the field, like who've done time, who are in the field of like creating resources for people inside that, reentry is should start from the day you go in. It shouldn't begin when you're about to be released. That's idealistic, but my experience tells me that it should be like that. And I think that, the transitional services program, so I want to say I didn't create transitional services, but I created like a way that it was relevant to the men inside. The Transitional Services is DOCS, Department of Correctional Services program. But within that program, it was a lot of antiquated material that we were supposed to disseminate to the men. And it was out of date. It wasn't relevant. It was whack. So I was like, myself and the other guys I work with inside the Transitional Services Center would like find ways, whether through writing to outside agencies or people or to a college we had a connection with, Vassar College, to like get resources in that were up to date and relevant. And that didn't come without its challenges. Officers and administration would often give us backlash for that. But for one, all those men who were part of the transitional services program as facilitators, I was a facilitator. Just about all of them are home now, and all of them are doing really well for themselves, right?
Good.
And a lot of the people who came through our workshops and through our classes and through the one-on-one counseling and resume writing workshops that we put together are doing well for themselves now. And I'm not going to say that it's because of transitional services, right? That's like being mad presumptuous. But, I would like to believe that it played a role in it, right? I got a homeboy of mine who came through it. He's real close to me in the program Holla. I don't know if you asked me about that, but like he came through it. And my man now is like running Holla. He was on the 13th, the Ava DuVernay joint, and he in a PhD program. You know what I mean? So like, and that's just what success is for him. But I'm just saying that like, and even some people who got deported who came through our program are somewhat doing relatively well in the country they was deported to. So like, if there's one thing I would say out of this whole like preparation for people coming home from jail, is that the programs that are most effective are the ones where the men or the women inside are the ones who are like the engineers behind it. Because we know best how to work with each other. Yeah. And we get buy-in from each other in a way that correctional administrators can never get.
I'm sure it's just a greater trust level too. I mean, you're working with these people, you're talking about these sensitive issues, and, they can relate to what you're going through and what you're about to be going through. So yeah, I can definitely see that having a greater effect than, some, like you said, some old, outdated manual from decades back that doesn't relate to anybody's actual situation.
You should have seen these joints. These joints was like typewritten back in like 89 or something. And I was doing just like the mid 2000s I was there. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, that's the big, yeah. It's not, unfortunately, it doesn't sound, it sucks, but it's not surprising just to hear that the care is not there as far as the materials and the preparation. But as far as you in particular, what challenges did you face while kind of re-entering society, leaving incarceration?
Every time I get that question, the answer I usually give is like, I had a relatively transition-less transition. But as 7 years later now, this is 2017, wow, almost 8 years, 7.5 years later now, like I'm seeing that there are some things that I have to, I'm still dealing with. So like, I would say the reason why I say transition-less is because, when I came home in December 2009, because of stuff I did inside, I was able to like start a youth program in a school in Brownsville, like a month after I came home. And I was straight volunteer, but that was Holla, the beginning of Holla, how our lives link all together. And then I did volunteering with a lot of different organizations. And I had gotten a job. It was a whack job, telemarketing, but I had gotten a job within like 2 weeks of me being home. And I credit my family for that, because when I came to the crib, when I came back to Brooklyn, like I had the apartment that I grew up in was still there. My parents were still there, and there was a little bedroom that they had, a bedroom in the apartment that my brother had since moved out, and it was just a mattress on the floor, but it was a mattress, and I didn't have to worry about housing or anything like that. Right, and my parents didn't push me to like, hey, you got to pay rent, you got to pay bills. Hell, they was paying bills before I came home. So like, So like they didn't put that type of pressure on me. And that helped me gave me the time and the brain space to be able to volunteer and to be able to do things that was like more of the networking space, instead of like having to like grind and get a full-time gig. I think going forward, one of the things that I'm realizing that are some of the like residues of like the trauma of incarceration is like some of the emotional distance that I have. Like I care a lot about people and issues, my work and all that shows that. But I think like in terms of like intimate relationships, I still have this thing where I put up a wall. Like in jail, you get close to people, but there's a wall. Like you ain't gonna get this close to me though. You know what I mean? And it's kind of, it's one of the things I did not prepare for, right? The emotional sort of impact of incarceration. And I'm not waking up in cold sweats, none of that sort of stuff, or scared to be around, a lot of people, even though there are some people who deal with that. But I'm just saying that like in terms of like being writing is one of the places that I can be the most vulnerable and the most open. And that's because I did a lot of that inside. I was writing inside. So I was practicing that. But in terms of having to do that with people in front of me, it's something I didn't practice a lot inside. And I realize like now in terms of like my interaction in terms of relationships, that like that keeps coming up. And it's so, I haven't been home as long as I was away. You dig what I'm saying? And I'm like realizing that some of those things are still like coming up, and I'm now in the place of like, of seeing that as a problem and that it needs to be dealt with.
Yeah. Now, did you at all have therapy involved in your transition?
No, I mean, I went to a therapist. You mean inside?
No, outside.
I went to a therapist maybe, not just once. I had some session with a therapist maybe 2.5, 3 years ago.
Okay.
And then a dope sister, older black lady, she was dope. But I think I wasn't mature enough to deal with that. I think I was in that room like, you can't figure me out. In my head, I was like, she trying to figure me out. She can't figure me out. And I think that immaturity made that opportunity, it was a wasted opportunity. And that was a couple of years ago. Since then, I have not gone to therapy. Yeah, so, I mean, that's the answer, sure, but I haven't been to therapy since.
Yeah. All right. Now, in a speech to law enforcement officers at Suffolk County Community College, 45 jokingly encouraged police to take fewer precautions when transporting suspects. And additionally, Attorney General Sessions announced his intention to crack down on marijuana use. Now, aside from empowering bigots and inspiring crime, how else has this new administration influenced your personal advocacy work?
I think it finally are seeing shit that we've been talking about for years. Is like the thing that Trump and his administration is saying now has always been there. And we know that because there's an audience for it. People clapped and applauded. You know what I mean? And this is in New York. This is in the deep South somewhere. So I think it's bringing to the fore that, a lot of the racist, a lot of like xenophobic and thinking about immigration deportation policies, those things are now, people are now seeing like, oh shit, this is what happens? And some people are thinking this is what happens now. I think for some folks, they're also saying, oh wow, I understand what they've been talking about for all these years. So I mean, I think what, people say it a lot, what Trump and his whole craziness has been doing is activating the people who weren't active before. And that's dope. And I think in terms of the criminal justice space, to be straight up, there's a lot of money rolling to criminal justice now because, not only because of Obama, but, Obama had some quote unquote progressive policies towards it, and his administration did. But because of Trump now, people are like, oh shoot, even more money is going into that. And that's good for folks who are doing work and reentry and advocacy and all that. I'm not necessarily getting that money yet. So if y'all out there listening, you can put that money over here. Holla at me.
Word.
What Trump's administration is saying, and ultimately what they are also doing, and I'm not talking about the criminal justice space. I'm speaking about all the other distractions that he's engineering, I believe. He's a distracting chief. All that sort of stuff that he's engineering on the flip side is also allowing for Sessions to be able to push under the rug a lot of things that are like pushing back Obama progressive criminal justice policies, or now just implementing things that takes us back into that takes back to the era of like Jim Crow. And that's one of the things I want people to pay attention to. Even with what's his name? Sheriff Clark, who's now a regular commentator on Fox, who's now part of who is in Trump's inner circle. Like this is he's a cop, right? He's a cop. And he may think, well, he's a black cop and that's what gets him, that's what the right wing likes. Like we got a black guy that speaks for us, but he's a cop who he's now somebody who informs policy now. And even though he may not be the one that's you see on the news every day when it comes to the Russia talks, he is working. Like that dude is working behind the scenes. And that's one of the things that, like for folks who are in the field, to be thinking about not only the big stuff like the speech that he gave in Suffolk County last week, but be thinking about the day-to-day policies and initiatives that are being sort of, whether it be through executive decision or otherwise, that are being sort of like pushed through.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, many of us are familiar with the story of Kalief Browder, young man from the Bronx who was arrested for allegedly stealing a backpack. He was, of course, locked up on Rikers for a few years simply because his family could not afford the $10,000 bail. Now, during that time, he was also beaten and starved by guards. He was jumped by fellow inmates. He was locked up in solitary confinement for a ridiculous amount of time. And, of course, charges were eventually dropped. But fortunately, he completed suicide in June of 2015. Now, this is a tragic story that, is getting a lot of press, a lot of celebrities and causes, kind of coming out to speak to this injustice. But what would you like people to learn, from this story, as far as whether preventing it or just what should people know about Kalief's story?
That Kalief is the norm in prison. Like Kalief is the norm in prison. I mean, we just had a recent case now in the Bronx in the same district attorney's office.
DA office?
that big word, office.
All two syllables.
Trying to be mad articulate. You're like, damn, what's that word? I'm just Pedro Hernandez, another brother who, was.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, and he was only 17. And I remember going to Rikers a couple of years ago for a program to help facilitate a program. And I met a kid in there, it would have been like 22. And he was in Rikers for 5 years. Listen, the things that I wrote a piece about this in Ebony some years ago about Kalief. And the thing about the Kalief case was this. After reading some of the, listen to some of the interviews that Kalief had prior to his suicide, he spoke about things about not only God's beating him, but God starving him. And it wasn't until that moment, like hearing him speak about that, I was like, oh, damn. Oh, that's not normal. Like, but it happened all the time. Like, I can tell you about experiences when guards would starve you. And the way they would starve you, I can give you an example of it, is that in the state facilities, you can't leave your housing unit without your ID card. Like, everybody has an ID card with their picture and their state number on it. Mm-hmm. And you can't walk out of your housing unit or your cell without that. If you walk out of your cell with it and the officer stops you, that's a ticket immediately. And so, like, what officers would do if they didn't like you or they just wanted to fuck with you, they would be like, give me in a housing, they're like, give me your ID. And they would just take it. And they're not taking your ID to write you up. They're taking your ID because they know you can't leave, which means you can't go eat. And I remember that happened to me like within the first 2 weeks of me going upstate. And when you first go upstate, you have to share a cell. And the guy shared a cell where he had did about 20 some years. He's from the Bronx as well. No, he's from Brooklyn. And I remember him saying to me when the officer took my ID, he was like, oh, that ain't nothing. That's just part of the bid. You'll be out in a few days. And I was like, I didn't like it initially, but then after it happened a couple more times, I was like, oh, it's just part of the bid though. It's just part of the bid. At least he didn't write me a ticket. You know what I'm saying? And we start rationalizing, like, oh, that's just part of the bid. We say the officer's going to burn you. You know what I mean? That's what we call it. And it wasn't until like reading about Kalief and hearing from him, I was like, damn, this brother was courageous enough to be like, to fight against that and then not to allow that to become normal to him. There were consequences behind it, obviously. His life is a consequence eventually. But like the things that happened to Kalief on Rikers Island, listen, Rikers Island is every jail and prison. I'm telling, I believe in the closing of Rikers, but I see it as a proxy for a larger strategy. What happens in Rikers happens everywhere else. I've been around enough to know that it happens everywhere else.
Yeah.
So what, as you mentioned, on that same token, what are your thoughts on that, the proposed 10-year, I think $30 million plan to close Rikers? I've seen a lot of people here pushing for them to close that much faster, but what are your thoughts on that?
Shout out to Glenn and Just Leadership and all them dudes, all them people over there that's doing that. That's behind it. First of all, I think their imagination is coming to fruition. I think folks imagine Rikers Island closing, and there are a lot of people who were like, hell no, that will never, ever happen. And they have realized their imaginations that at least there is the talk of it, and there's people who proposing. The mayor, of course, was even saying that he wants it done. He's saying that he wants 10 years to do it. And I think that doesn't make sense because he won't be in office for 10 years. It's sort of a way to like push it off to the next person.
The next guy. Yeah.
And the next person will be, just like we had a Republican from Obama to Trump, you got a de Blasio to whoever else, another right wing. And what do you think is going to happen to that Rikers proposal? It's not legislated to close, right? It's what people want to be clear about. Like the idea to close it within 10 years is not legislation to close it. It's a proposal to close it. Right? And even though the city council in New York is overwhelmingly in support of it, a new mayor and a new administration could come in and be like, that ain't happening. And then,
Word.
You know what I mean? So I'm happy that we at this place, and there's a lot of folks are putting pressure on him and the administration. Crazy hard body, and we need to keep doing that collectively. But just don't get complacent in thinking that, well, since we heard the mayor say that it's going to be closed in 10 years, that it can be done. And be clear, why 10 years? Like, what does it take a decade to do?
To please everybody and get all his ducks in a row.
They done gentrify the whole Brooklyn in a few years, less than that.
3 years even.
Word. You know what I mean?
It doesn't take that at all. I'm curious. You mentioned like Kalief not, him going against the injustice as far as like not allowing those things to become normal or not normalized to him. So like, I'm just curious, like that difference, what do you do? You accept it, you kind of keep your head down and you accept the abuse and or, do you kind of play that line and speak out or write to someone or let someone know? Just like, how does one find that? Or how did you find that balance?
Or how do you fight back?
I mean, there's always been a spirit of rebellion in prison and resistance, right? I think that's one thing folks should always know. There's always been a resistance in prison, in jails and prisons. I mean, Angela Davis speaks about it, George Jackson, the Attica. Like, there's always been a resistance. You have to determine for yourself what you're willing to live for and what you're willing to die for. I think, every decision in prison is like a life or death decision. And that's not only because, like, the officers can directly do something to you, but there are other people, incarcerated men or women, if you're in a women's facility, who the officers can get to do things to you. So, like you need, and administration also. I don't want to just say only officers, the administration as well. So there's a grievance process, an internal grievance process, which I never took advantage of because I thought it was whack, because the person that eventually reviews your grievance is a sergeant, an officer, and officers would rarely rule against their officers. So it's kind of like some of the mechanisms to complain against police out here. But I think you have to determine what it is you're willing to live and die for. And if you're willing to take the risk of extending your time or going to the box or losing any sort of privilege, what they call like opportunities or privileges, because you're complaining as a confined person. And even though you may complain to people outside, like this guy, Pedro Hernandez, the kid in Rikers Island, like he had a great amount of resource, like people, he had an overwhelming support of people from the community advocating on behalf of him and eventually got him bailed out. But like that doesn't happen oftentimes. The Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Organization that bail out this guy, Pedro Hernandez, isn't bailing everybody out, and is not going to be paying attention to everybody inside. For me, I did a little bit of all. So I wrote letters to people outside. I would write letters directly to the warden and the superintendent. I would speak to them directly when I had the opportunity to. And a lot of times I failed, to be straight up, but there were times when even in that failure, they knew that I knew them. And I don't know if that makes sense to you or your audience, but like they knew they couldn't get one over on me.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? There's one time when I complained because I was running a college program inside with Vassar College. It's sort of how I met my homeboy, KSA Lehman. But I was running this program where college students would come in, and it was mainly, Vassar College, the liberal arts white school mainly. So the people that were coming in from the school were, undergraduates, so 19, 20, 21-year-old white girls mainly, because it's predominantly girls in that school. And so the officers just believed that we had no one. The only reason why we really wanted them to come inside was to like get with them, which was not the case. So initially when, as humans do, when they see each other, they give each other a handshake or a hug. And we used to do that until one day, just randomly, we come to the class this particular Friday afternoon, and the officer comes in the room and says, you can't shake hands or hug anymore. It was like, what the? Like, and just imagine what that says to everybody in that room.
It's humanizing.
Right?
Yeah.
So, that blew me away. And so what I did now was like, well, this officer's getting orders. So I wrote a letter. I was like, I'm not doing a grievance, because I don't believe in a grievance thing. So I wrote a letter to the superintendent, to the warden, a woman, quote unquote, progressive warden. And in it, I detailed like what was wrong about that policy, but I also spoke like language that they understood in terms of like Department of Correctional policy in terms of promoting rehabilitation. And this was antithetical to rehabilitation and blah, 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 blah. So anyhow, so I sent that letter out, and I remember the following morning, early in the morning before they even served breakfast, the officer in my house unit is like, the senior counselor needs you to come to this office right now. So, that like never happens, especially not before breakfast. That's like, what's that, 7 in the morning or 6:30 in the morning?
Shit. Yeah.
So, I get a pass, and I get, go to his office. And this was like, this counselor, senior counselor, was one of the guys who he's like, he would have the depiction of like an inmate lover, you want to call that. They would call people that, like nigga lover, inmate lover. And he was like, yo, Marlon, I don't know what got in your mind to write this letter to the superintendent, but she called me this morning or last night, whatever it was, cursing me out and telling me to tell you to get you out this jail, to kick you out this jail, to lose you. And he said, it's only because I know you is that I was willing to I was able to speak on your behalf. But he's like, you better not ever do nothing like this again. Because I'm telling you, she wanted to kick you out and lose you in the, when they say lose you, that means put you in the box or a shoe or solitary confinement. Wow. He's like, don't do that again. And, so later that day, the deputy superintendent of security comes to me and relays the same thing to me again. And this all because I just spoke up. I didn't curse her out. I didn't say, fuck you, superintendent. I just said, and I didn't send a letter out to no newspaper or nothing like that. I was like, I'm just like, this is wrong, and you shouldn't be doing this in your jail. And she was offended that I asserted my own humanity to her. I mean, that's what it ultimately was. You dig what I'm saying? It's just like that counselor that told me, you're not Mr. Peterson, you're inmate Peterson. And this is the superintendent now, right? This is not just a counselor. And the reason why I'm giving you these titles of the people, because oftentimes people think it's only the officers that are like doing this on their own whims. The officers do this because it's sort of like, because the administration, their superiors co-sign it, encourage it. They take leadership with it. You dig what I'm saying? And for me, and there's another time where even 7 days before I was released, a sergeant said, if you have more than 7 days left, I will lose you in the system. And it's largely only because I spoke up for folks. I didn't get in tickets. I wasn't inside smoking weed. I wasn't in no gang. I wasn't doing nothing crazy in the jail. I was just doing my time and helping other folks out. And they saw that as a threat to them. And I was happy for that.
To that point, though, you briefly mentioned that you have a little bit of a history with our boy Kiese. Can you kind of talk about how you guys developed that relationship?
That's my brother, yo, for real. I mean, we don't share blood, man, but I think like our slave ships, man, was kind of like closely connected, yo. So as I said, I ran this program with Vassar College and facility I was in. And so the students who would come in, they would be like, yo, you know, because Kiese wasn't a part of that program. But he obviously knew about it. And the students would be like, yo, this is professor that we got that you should know. Yo, I swear y'all should know each other. So I didn't get to meet him while I was inside. So after I was released, as I said, I had the youth mentorship program in a school in Brownsville, Holla, how our lives link all together. Yeah. And I decided like, hey, let me plan a college trip for these kids. You know, I had this is like, I planned it. So I came home in December and I had a college trip planned to me for these kids. So, and I was communicating with students who were in the Vassar program while I was still in prison. Yeah. So one of the women who were like helping me coordinate it from the Vassar and was like, we're going to have our professor Kiese Layman like do a mini class for the kids. And these are middle school kids, I should say. So, you know, we take the bus up to Poughkeepsie, New York, and we walk into this classroom. And I should say, I didn't know what Kiese looked like. I had no idea. I'm thinking, in my mind, I think college, white kids, he's a white guy. So I walk in and I see this dude, he had on a blazer and the jeans and a pair of Air Force Ones. And he's like, yo, what up, my nigga? And I was like,
that's him. That's Kiese.
I was like, yes, I was completely confused. I was like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, am I being punked? And then, so then he proceeds to conduct this dope, like mini English class for middle school kids. And it was, I mean, it was an amazing experience just sitting there and see how these kids opened up to him and they just met the dude. Yeah. And I remember, so after class is over, me and Kiese was kicking it on the side. He was like, yo, I dig your writing, yo. I dig how you write. And I'm like, first of all, my mom, like, how you know how I write? And be clear, like I had a blog, like I had a friend of mine who would like, when I would write stuff, she would like transcribe it and put it on a blog I had called Pens from the Pen. It's still online somewhere. But I didn't think anybody was really reading it. I sure don't think no college professor was reading it. And ever since then, man, like, it's like love at first sight. You know what I mean? Like he's been a friend to me and a brother to me in a way that I don't want to say I'm indebted to him but I want to say that it's the most sincere and genuine relationship I can have with just about anybody. You know what I mean? Like he helped me in so many ways, and we've helped each other in so many ways. And like right now, we talk shit all the time. We got our own little text thread, me, him, and another homeboy, Michael and Darnell. I don't know if y'all know, I'm naming people, but like...
Yeah, I know them.
And we got this little group thread where we just, we talk shit to each other. And I mean, it's all love, man. And I'm thankful that I get to be in his circle. Shout out to you, Kiese. Shout out to Kiese.
Yeah, and his dad, Ben Carson.
That's the only problem we got, though.
Yo, what's funny though is that like when I was giving him shit about that on the podcast, people genuinely thought that was his dad. I had like a group of people hit us up like, yo, that's really his dad? What the fuck? All right, so now there are strong arguments and pros and cons on both sides of the prison reform versus the abolition argument. Mm-hmm. So from your perspective, what would abolition of mass incarceration look and feel like? It would look like initially, first of all, I think if you're not thinking about abolition, for me, and just how I look at it, if you're not thinking about abolition of prisons, then it makes no sense in doing this. I mean, we got to be able to see a time when we don't need to depend on these things, on those things called prisons. So I mean, one of the things it looks like is, even in a TED Talk I gave,
I briefly speak about if we invest in communities, and I mentioned, some of the communities, poorer communities. I mentioned Brooklyn. Or parts of Brooklyn. Not all of Brooklyn is poor anymore. And Laventille is a very poor community in Trinidad. Where there's a lot of violence and, gun violence and things like that, on par with Chicago, actually, sadly. And I say that an investment in these communities is what we really need. When I say investment, I don't mean only like more nonprofit organizations. That is one of the ways you can invest, but in terms of not the school system, but also in the people in these communities, so that they can invest in the people in these communities and those who people tend not to want to care about, so that they can sort of be the resources that the community needs. I think that any sort of abolition, to see the abolition of prisons come to fruition, we need to be thinking about hyper-focus on the social conditions that create the conditions in these communities that so many people from prison come from, right?
Yes.
So to be thinking about, like, people aren't poor, or people aren't like robbing people, or people aren't sticking up people solely because, like, one, oh, I'm just idle. Two, I'm just lazy and all that. Like, these things are like socially manufactured conditions in these particular communities, right?
Yes.
When you think about, you could go to Chicago, you could go to Detroit, you could go to Watts, you could come to Brooklyn, like so many, Mississippi, like Jackson, like you go to so many of these places and see the historical lineage of racism in those spaces, and see how that literally is a conduit to gunshots, to somebody getting shot on the corner right now in 2017. You dig what I'm saying? And I think that, and those are policies. That's not only just somebody, a racist white dude saying "fuck niggas." Like that is the like
legislation.
Not only it's legislation, it's policy, and all that sort of stuff that creates these conditions. So I think that, one, an investment in eradicating the social conditions that create these poor conditions in the hood and the ghetto is one of the ways that we can see abolition come to fruition, right? Because we need to stop putting people in those places. And we need to stop thinking that that's the only way, that prison and cops are the only resource that can support the people in our communities, right? Because ultimately that's what it is. Law enforcement is a resource, and it's the dominant resource that they give to hoods. That's the resource that we get, right? So it's happening, give them police. That's what we need. We need more police. And sadly, many of our own folks in these communities believe, we're socially conditioned to believe that we need to always be policed. To be safe. And that is not the problem, right? That's not the answer, I should say, right? Because there's white communities, there's so many communities in Brooklyn. You go to Bowram Hill, Columbia Heights, like they're parts of Brooklyn that don't generate a prison population. What's going on there that's not going on in the Style or in the Ville or East New York? You know what I'm saying? There's literally things happening there that, for what it's worth, we can replicate. Right? You can literally, like, I'm not speaking about anything that's new or foreign. I know I'm getting long-winded with your question, but, like, I just sincerely think that abolition ultimately has to begin with a hyper-focus on the conditions that create hoods and ghettos in the first place.
Yeah, it has to be proactive as opposed to reactive.
I know I'm getting mad long-winded with my answers. My bad. I gotta do this.
Oh, no, you rocking. Go ahead, Alex.
So just one thing I was curious, in your article regarding Kalief's death, you discussed the indifference to the plight of the incarcerated and the effects of the laws that we vote for. You wrote that Kalief's death was not a suicide, but a homicide by committee. And you said that you are on that committee. Mm-hmm. Just in terms of just how we got here and how we kind of shun, those that are in the system. How do we get to this point of such collective indifference? And how do we move back towards a place of, maybe greater understanding of the system and the effects of these laws and, just empathy and kind of walking back from this shitty place that we're in right now?
Before I went to prison, I didn't give a rat's ass about people in prison. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just be straight up, even though I had friends that went to jail and, came home, like, I didn't care about what was happening in jail or prison. And I think, I otherize people in prison. Like, I ain't doing nothing that crazy to go to jail. If they went there, they must, they was really wilding out. And, that indifference is the indifference that most people have. Most people think that if you're in jail, whether you're innocent or guilty, like, if you're in jail, what do you expect? You should be, tortured. And people may not, and some people will verbalize that. Most people won't verbalize it. They'll think it. But I think when I think about the Kalief, and I say that we're all part of that committee that is a part of his homicide, first of all, Kalief was a kid. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was a kid. He was 16 when he went in. He was a little kid. Like, think about a 10th grader right now. Think about a 10th grader who got a half-fare train pass or bus pass, right? And that's who he was when he went in, and the only reason why people cared about Kalief because he was on TV. That's the only reason why people cared about him, right? And there were enough advocates and people in his corner to portray a story that was different, that was positive, that showed him in a positive light. But here's the thing, Kalief was blood. Like, he was once blood, right? And even though, and I'm not saying that, the reason why I'm bringing that up, the fact that he was blood, is because people automatically put people like, who's a part of a street gang in a category of like incorrigible and unworthy of help and care and love and humanity, right?
Yeah.
But we intentionally, with folks who were advocating on behalf of him, didn't lead with that. You know what I'm saying? Because we know how people would react to that. But the thing about it is that the reason why most people are indifferent and apathetic to people in prison or the conditions or the issues around prison and the criminal justice system in this country, or not only in this country, in the world abroad, because we say that's not us. We say that's not me, right? Yep. And if there is somebody in our family or in our close vicinity or in our circle who goes to jail, we'd be like, well, she or he is not like everybody else. Like my family did that to me. When they would come visit me, they'd be like, well, you're not like everybody else in here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And of course, nobody everywhere is the same. But the point is that we were able to sort of like create this other that me and my family or friends are different from all those other people in prison. So we don't need to care about all those other people in prison. And that's one of the reasons why I'm thinking about the Kalief case. I said we're all part of that community because most people don't care because we don't see them physically or even psychically.
Yeah.
I guess it's easy to, out of sight, out of mind. It's easy to, like you said, otherize, and any chance that we get to present ourselves as being superior or morally or any other kind of way, we're definitely going to take that. Yeah. And now, me being a foodie, I have to ask, what may be considered the unthinkable.
Don't do it.
Oh, it's coming.
Don't do it.
What's the best thing you ate while in prison?
Oh, shit. He did it. All right, so I got something for y'all, right? You did that. And you got a lot of balls to ask that question, first of all. So here's the first thing. I'm going to say that I suddenly just got a little bit too excited when I was about to answer this question. On Sundays and Thursdays in jails, they serve chicken. Now, I'm a black person saying the best thing, but in Sunday and Thursdays, particularly there's one Sunday a month in the state prisons where they serve fried chicken. This is so stereotypical, right? So if any white racist people listen, so any white racist people listen, they're like, I knew it. Them niggas like chicken. Where they go? Yeah, I like chicken. So what? And I like watermelon. So anyhow, but it would be just fried chicken that we serve, and it'd be white rice. What the hell came with that? There might have been some sort of gravy, some white gravy that I got learned to like. And I think sometimes it was something like a sherbet. That's the first one. I had never eaten a sherbet before I went to jail, and they give you like a strawberry sherbet. That was like everybody's coming to the mess hall that day. Everybody up in there. Everybody carrying a cigarette.
Hold on, you got chicken, gravy, and sherbet?
The people like they living too good in prison.
Yeah, I'm like, no.
Well, dudes be trading cigarettes to get their extra food. Like, I'll give you some cigarettes to get your chicken, son.
Damn.
That chicken was legit. What is next on the horizon for you?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I heard this podcast is going on. I'm writing a book now, all jokes aside, that I'm procrastinating with. But I'm writing a book, and let's see where that goes. Hopefully sometime next year it'll be out. But, I kind of say this, man. I kind of go where I'm needed. All the things I've been able to do inside, even since I've been home. And at the beginning, you read off that bio of mine. I wasn't working towards any of those things, to be honest with you. I wasn't like, I'm doing this, so I want to get that. I kind of go where I'm needed. I just wrote a piece on Cassius.com about transphobia and my own struggles with it in relation to the comments that Lil Duval made on the Breakfast Club. And, people don't necessarily, everything now in the world of social media is about branding and whatever. And people don't necessarily know me to be somebody who speaks on behalf or speaks in solidarity with folks who are trans. But it's it just needed to be done. You know what I'm saying? As somebody who's cisgender, it's just needed to be done. You know what I mean? I don't have any other reason for it than, it just needed to be said. So I don't know, man. Hopefully, on a low, really? Yeah, I don't know if you could hook that up, but I admire Maya Angelou so much because she had a full life. She had multiple careers. as an advocate, writer, poet, actress, soul dancer, all sort of stuff. I want to act, kid. I don't know how to act, but like, if I could if I could act somehow and like propel these issues with that platform, it'd be dope. I don't know how that starts. I don't know how to act. I don't know how to like curse on cue or cry on cue and all that other stuff. But
hey, listen, we have thousands upon thousands of listeners, so you never know who's listening.
Yeah, man, but I don't know what's happening, man. I just hope that I can continue to be impactful and contribute to this planet, man. That's all I hope I can continue to do in whatever ways are afforded to me.
That's what's up, y'all.
I want to thank you for that. We just arrived to the portion of the show called the Extraordinary Negroes of the Week, where we give some shine to someone we think is doing something dope and noteworthy. We want to give a little bit of a praise to for a second. So I will, if you want, take some time. We'll let Jay go first. If you want to take a moment to come up with your person, but Jay, if you want to start it off.
Yeah, I'll give Marlon a little bit to marinate on his answer. But my Extraordinary Negro of the Week, and he might be he's in contention for Extraordinary Negro of the Year, is Mr. Shannon Sharpe. Ever since he came on Skip Bayless's show Undisputed, I think it debuted in last September. He has been a consistent voice of being reasonable. He's been a consistent voice of illuminating Black issues and being knowledgeable on them and being honest and not really giving a fuck about white feelings. And right now he's got a lot of people up in arms about this whole Colin Kaepernick situation. And, he's got his coworkers coming for him. He's got conservatives coming for him, and he gives less than a shit.
That ain't Steve Bashotti's fight. What happened to Freddie Gray? That ain't no owner's fight.
Yes, it is, though, Ray.
If it is,
this is America.
If it is, then all of our owners should get together and go in these urban neighborhoods and clean it up. Why wouldn't you?
Because, Ray, they don't care because it's an issue they're never going to have to face. It's people like you and I that's been there and know people that's faced these issues. You talking about Steve Bashotti is never going to have to worry about the police beating him or a family member down. Jerry Jones, Mr. Kraft, they never going to have to worry about that.
That's what I just said.
So why should they care? They should care because it's the United States of America.
And he's still, speaking the truth and letting these motherfuckers know what's going on. So he is my Extraordinary Negro of the Week. I have tremendous respect for that man, and I salute everything that he's doing. And hopefully one day he will come on the show.
Ta-da. Shout out to Shannon Sharpe. Okay, my Extraordinary Negro of the Week is someone who has been doing great work and, using his platform to highlight the work of others, Black creatives, also doing great work. He is a filmmaker and director. His name is Matthew A. Cherry.
Motherfucker, I was going to use him too. Damn it.
Yeah. Great filmmaker. He is currently running a campaign for an animated film that he's doing called Hair Love, which is, just promoting a Black character. I believe the name is Zuri. Just about a Black girl's hair story and, just promoting Black love and self-love and things like that. Doing a very successful Kickstarter campaign that I believe got funded in, long before it was over. He's also been using his platform.
I think he's still got a couple more days left.
Yeah, he might even have. That shit's still going strong, I believe. Yeah, it is still going strong.
He's on like his 15th stretch goal. But go ahead.
Yeah, about to hit like 208,000 or some crap like that. But yeah, he's also been just using his platform, his Twitter, and to highlight the work of other, up and coming filmmakers, Black editors and designers and creatives, and just really using his platform to just do like what we've all wanted to do, just put on the next person and give the next person a shine. So shout out to you, Matthew. I hope you come through the Extraordinary Negroes sometime in the very near future. But just definitely love to see just someone who's doing great work also using their platform to big up the next people doing work too. So there's room for all of us out here, and he is proof of that. There's no risk in paying it forward. Everybody can eat out here.
So I know it's your show, but I kind of like two people. One of them is not really Black, but she is from Brooklyn, and the other one is a homie. So real quick, I want to give a shout out. One of the Extraordinary Negro I want to give a shout out to is Linda Sarsour. I mean, she's not a Negro.
Oh yeah, she's dope.
But that's the homie, that's my sis, and she's going through a lot right now. I think, the New York Times, somebody wrote an op-ed in the New York Times that was like coming at her crazy. I want to give a shout out to her, man, because she's somebody that people don't know that is like in the grind hard body before and with even when the news ain't, cameras ain't on her, on all our issues, gun violence, like also, she's there. So I want to give a shout out to Linda Sarsour. And the second person is the homie Malik Yoba. Malik Yoba is a homie, a good friend of mine, and like he's always willing to use his platform to speak to not only issues of criminal justice, but to also amplify those people who are actually like the advocates and activists in the criminal human justice arena.
Yeah.
So I want to give a shout out to those two, Malik Yoba and Linda Saw. What up, y'all?
Yo, tell Malik Yoba what's good with that New York Undercover reboot, man. Everybody else coming back. If we got to put up with Full House and Raven Simone and all this other dumb shit, like, can we get that New York Undercover reboot?
You're posting a lot of it on Instagram lately. I don't know, maybe. I mean, why not?
Yeah, that's what the streets really need, because that Full House is absolute trash.
That's actually a thing.
Yeah,
really
the Fuller House,
is it?
it's so bad. It's so bad. But
it's
definitely
full
should
of
not have
crap.
happened.
It's full of crap, full of shit. How you said it together, full of shit.
So yeah, okay. So shout out to all our Extraordinary Negroes of the week, and thank you, Marlon, for stopping by and blessing us with your brilliance and your perspectives. And why don't you go ahead and let the people know where they can find you on these interwebs if they want to find out more about what you have going on and what you have to say.
Yeah, you can check out the Decarcerated podcast. You go to my website, marlonpeterson.com, or on Twitter at decarceratedpod, IG at decarcerated podcast. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You can find everything you need about me and the work that I'm doing there, my writing, all that, primarily by going to the website, marlonpeterson.com. You can see me out there. Oh yeah, one more last thing. Hit me up on Twitter at _Marlon Peterson. I ain't as famous as everybody else, but I say some crazy shit on Twitter. So hit me up there.
I'm out here.
Word, y'all. Thanks for having me on here, yo.
Not a problem. Also, yeah, we will also be posting your essay that you wrote about Kalief Browder on our show notes on the extraordinarynegroes.com. So make sure y'all check that out. Feel free to subscribe to us on iTunes as the Extraordinary Negroes. Drop us that amazing 5-star reviews and tell the world how great you think the show is. Also find us on TuneIn, SoundCloud, or your other podcast platform of choice. Also Lip Sync. Be sure to hit us up and tell a friend. Again, hit up our website, theextraordinarynegroes.com, for show notes, original op-eds, and essays. We got some really great contributors coming through these days, dropping us with really great content, not just on Mental Health Mondays, but all over the place. Poetry, storytelling, all types of dope shit. You definitely want to hit us up there. Hit us up on Facebook, also on Twitter and Instagram at The Extra Negroes. And yeah, tell a friend or 50, drink your water, hit up your therapist, tell someone you love them, all that good stuff.
And take a nap, get some sleep. You look like shit.
Oh yeah, nap. Yes, take a nap, because you look crazy out here. Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.